Hello everyone. Today we will see about priority and severity of the bug. What is the difference between priority and severity of a bug? So in last session we have understood what is severity of bug. Severity refers to the impact of that defect on the system functionality and business workflow. Severity means how critical that issue to business, how critical that issue to overall application. Severity measures the seriousness of the defect in terms of system behavior, functionality, or data integrity. And whenever the severity is logged, it is logged by testers. It is defined by testers because testers has gone to the requirements. Testers have written the test cases. Testers have understood all the requirements and they can define the severity of the issue, whether it's very critical, it's a blocker, it's a major, it's medium, or it's minor. So overall, severity is basically how impactful that issue for the overall business workflow. For example, if you have a banking application, in that application login is not working, then what would be the severity of that issue? If login is not going to work, then how the user is going to perform other activities? If user itself is not able to log in, then it's a very blocker severity issue. So there are different layers of severity. So severity layers are defined as critical or blocker, major or high, medium or moderate, and minor severity. So these are some layers of severity. And this can be different depending on different organizations. In some organization we can use different terminologies, but just understand the concept here. Severity means whenever you are logging the defect, we have to define the severity of that issue. So severity is measurement or the seriousness of that defect in terms of business workflow, behavior, functionality of the system, data integrity, etc. Severity is defined by testers. So whenever you are logging the issue, we have to define the severity of the issue depending on how critical its impact on the system. There are 3 to 4 type of severity layers. First one is blocker or critical severity. If there are defect or if there is a bug which causes the system or major part of the system to stop functioning completely. So during the test execution, if you find out such bug, basically which overall halts or stops the major part of the system to stop functioning completely, then it's a blocker severity issue. It is a blocker or it is a critical severity issue. The application is unstable until the issue is fixed. If there are such issue because of which application is totally unstable and unusable because of that issue, then as a tester you would not be able to do any type of testing on that build. So we cannot test further unless that blocker severity issue are fixed. So we should immediately log that blocker severity issue because it's a showstopper for further QA. Because unless and until that issue gets fixed, we cannot perform any other type of testing on that build. So it is a showstopper issue for QA build. It's a blocker and it's a critical severity issue. And because of those issues by which overall system or some part of the system totally stops working. So such issues are categorized as per the blocker severity issue. What are some examples of blocker severity? System crash. If your application is getting crashed when a user tries to log in, that is a blocker severity. Database failure. The database is not accessible. If database is not accessible, it will cause all the functions to fail. Login will not work. So such issues are basically blocker or critical severity issues. Major or high severity. So after blocker and critical severity, the priority comes to major and high severity. So the defect which severely affect the functionality but does not completely halt the system. So during test execution, if you find such bug, because of those, some functionality of the application is not working, but other part of the system are working correctly. So these issues are basically major or high severity issues. Because of this major and high severity, major features may not work properly, but the application is still usable with significant limitations. So these issues are also important. So once the blocker issues are resolved, obviously major and high severity issues also need to be fixed. Example, broken payment gateway. If you are testing some e-commerce application on test environment in which you have got the build. So just imagine you have received the build of the application to test. You are able to log in that application. You are able to browse the product. You are able to search the product. You are able to add the product in the cart. But you are not able to make the purchase because payment gateway is not working. Payment gateway is broken. Then such issues we can mark it as major or high severity issues. Though other functions are working correctly, that's why we are not marking it as a blocker issue, because user is able to log in, user is search the product, user is able to browse the product, he is able to add the product. But when he tried to do the payment, the application is breaking. User is not able to do payment. So that is a major and high severity issue. Incorrect calculation. On e-commerce website, if it is miscalculating the total cost of items in the cart, then it's also a major and high severity issue. So whenever you are doing the test execution, ideally all the blocker issues and critical severity issues should be fixed immediately. Major and high severity will be picked after those issues. Moderate or medium severity. So those comes after the major and high severity issues. The defect which affects a specific feature or function, but they have some workaround. So when you are testing out that feature, there is some issue in that specific feature, but it has some type of workaround. So it can still work if you follow some certain steps. The system can still function, but the defect may degrade the user experience. So if you find out such bugs, you should mark them as moderate or medium severity issues. What are some examples of moderate and medium severity? So button unresponsive. So you have some save button in a setting menu that does not work, but the same setting can still be saved through a different screen. So it is not blocking your testing, right? You can still able to save from some different screen. The issue is happening only on setting page. So such issues are having moderate severity. Other example will be UI misalignment. So there is some form. Let's say some form which takes some user data. And on that form there is some input field which is slightly misaligned. So on UI you can see some slight misalignment, but that's still functional. That field is still taking the input and it is saving it successfully. If it's such an issue which is just a misalignment, then it's a moderate severity issue. One more example would be you have some booking system. After booking that ticket, there is no confirmation message. The user is booking is able to success. So booking is successful. So let's take a movie ticket booking application. In that application, user is booking the ticket and ticket is getting successfully booked. But after booking, user is not getting any confirmation message. So from the user's perspective, it is not a good user experience. So it is a user experience related issue. Even though ticket is booked, ideally user should able to see some confirmation message. That is the good user experience. It is hampering the user experience flow. Though the functionality is working, it is degrading the user experience. So such issues are categorized as a medium or moderate severity issues. Minor and low severity. So minor and low severity issues are those issues in which the defect has little or no impact on the system functionality. It is typically related to some cosmetic or minor usability related issues. For example, some small spelling mistake in a word in help section. So on the website we have some help section, and in that help section there is one spelling mistake in one of the paragraph. So it has very low impact on the overall user experience because the probability of users going to help section and reading all the content, it's very low. And even if there is a spelling mistake, it is not having any major impact on the overall system functionality. That's why severity of such issues should be marked as minor or low severity. It can be some cosmetic change or minor UI related issues. UI color related issue. For example, some button has wrong color but it functions as expected. So the functionality is working correctly but it is having some slightly different color. So that is a low severity issues. So this is basically about different type of severity levels. So what is the issue severity? So severity refers to the impact of that defect on the system's functionality and the business workflow. So depending on its impact on the system's behavior, it can be a critical and blocker severity issues which should be fixed very immediately because they are very critical in severity. After that comes major and high severity issues, then medium and moderate severity, and then minor and low severity. We have also seen the examples of blocker severity, major severity, medium severity, and low severity issues. So that is about the severity of issue. Now come to the priority of the bug. So what is exactly the priority of the bug? So priority indicates how quickly the defect should be fixed. During test execution, testers can find multiple issues. As a tester, you will find, suppose you have found 50 issues, and all the 50 issues you have reported to the development team. Now how the development team is going to pick those issues? They cannot pick all the 50 issues at one time, right? They have to prioritize the issue picking. For that purpose, they will go through the priority of the ticket. So whatever issue which is having the highest priority will be picked up first. They will pick the P0 issues first. After that P1 issues. After that P2 issues. So depending on the priority, how quickly the issue need to be fixed, that defines the priority. It is assigned based on business need and the urgency of resolving the defect. And priority can be determined by the project manager or stakeholders as well. So normally whenever you are logging the issue, normally as a QA, you will give the priority, but we have to understand that priority can be changed depending on the requirement. Priority can be changed by project manager. Priority can be changed by development manager as well. Because depending on the business requirements, sometimes they will feel that some issues might not be taken up in this phase and some issues we can take up later on. So they will decrease the priority. Or sometimes depending on the requirement, project manager or development manager can increase the priority or they can also decrease the priority as well, depending on customer expectation, overall deadline of the project, and depending on the market demand, etc. So we have to understand that priority can be changed. Priority of the issues can be changed. But severity, as a tester, who gives the severity of the issue? It's a tester's job. As a tester, we should always provide the severity. And severity is not changed because as a tester, you know the requirement, you know the impact of that specific issue on the system. So severity means what impact it is making on the system's behavior. So severity is given by testers only, and severity is not changed for the issues. But priority, it can be changed. Priority is how quickly the defect should be fixed. And priority, depending on the market demand, depending on the customer expectation, depending on the stakeholders, priority of the issues can change. And priority mainly helps the developer to decide which issues should be picked up first. There are different type of priority levels. So first one is P0 priority. P0 means it's a blocker priority issue. The P0 defect should be fixed immediately because it is blocking the functionality and affecting the critical business operations. For example, checkout failure. If there is a checkout process in e-commerce website that is failing, stopping all the transactions. So that is a P0 issue, blocker issue, because users are not able to do checkout process. Login failure. User is not able to log in. Then it's a P0 blocker issue. P0 priority should be fixed immediately. Or if let's say you have received the test build and that test build contains some installable file and that installation is not happening. If that installation is not working, that application is not getting installed in your system, so you are not able to test anything. That is a P0 blocker priority issue. So P0 issues are those issues which should be fixed by developer immediately. They are blocking the testing. They should be fixed immediately. P1 priority. After P0 issues which are immediate fixes, developers will pick the P1 issues. P1 means high priority issues. So whenever this defect should be fixed as soon as, but not immediately as P0 issues, but still P1 issues are also important issues because P1 issues are directly associated with the requirements given by the product team. So though it is not blocking the detailed testing, but some major functionality is impacted, then only you will report those as a P1 issues. So whatever requirements are under testing, so you have 10 requirements, 10 test cases, you have written it as a P1 test cases. And out of those, 5 test cases are failing. So 5 main requirements are failing. 5 main behaviors are not as per the requirement. So those are the P1 issues. You should give the priority of P1 to such issue. P1 issues need to be resolved before release. So whenever you are going to release that feature, we should verify that all the P1 issues are also fixed. P0 and P1. All the P0 and P1 issues should be fixed before the release. P0 issues ideally should be fixed immediately, and after that P1 issues should be fixed. Some example of P1 issues: broken images. If you are having the website on which company logo does not appear on the home page, but it's just a logo, it is not appearing on the home page, so you can still conduct the testing, you can still perform the detailed functionality of that application, but before the release you should fix that logo as well. That P1 issue should be fixed before the release. Slow response time. You have some pages like user profile page, user products page, user orders page. These pages are not loading in fast manner, they are loading very slowly. So eventually the page is loading, so that's why it is not a blocker. You can carry out the testing. But before the release, that P1 issue should be fixed. User should not be able to see that slow response time. That's why it is a P1 issue. So as a tester, we should mark it the priorities of the issues correctly. And before release, we should maintain that P0 and P1 should be fixed by developer. After P0 and P1, there are P2 and P3 priority issues. So what is P2 and P3 priority? P2 and P3 priority defects are such issues which can be fixed later and they are not urgent. So such issues might not be having impact on any functionality. They can be some minor UI or cosmetic related issues and they are not very urgent to fix. They don't affect the critical functionality and user experience. Example, UI padding issue. For example, there is a slight misalignment in the UI. Some spacing between some elements on a setting page is inconsistent. Outdated information. For example, let's say you have some help section which contains some old screenshot but the instructions are still valid. It's just a slight UI which is not correct. So such issues are noted as P2 and P3 priority. So developers will fix those issues later. And such P2 and P3 issues sometimes can be fixed in further releases as well. So they will not fix immediately in the current release, but they will fix those issues in some later releases. So such issues are basically P2 and P3 priority issues. So whenever you find such issues, depending on the urgency, we have to mark it as the priority. If it's a blocker, if it's a blocking the testing, we can mark it as a P0 issue. If it is impacting some major functionality, then we can mark it as a P1 issue. If it's a minor issue and not urgent, then we can mark it as a P2 and P3 issues. So this is about the priority of the issue. So now let's understand. So we have gone through what is severity. We have also understood what is priority. So what is the main difference between severity and priority? So severity and priority of issue both are related, but they are not same. Main difference between severity and priority is severity is about the impact of the defect on the system, whereas priority is about the urgency of fixing the defect based on business need. Severity cannot change, but priority can be changed. In severity, we have seen critical and blocker, major, medium, minor. In priority, we have seen P0, P1, P2 and P3. Again, this terminology might vary depending on the organization, but most logically, most of the times, these are the terms which are followed. So that is about severity and priority. Now let's see some more examples. Now, one more important question, or in interview also, it is most frequently asked question, that different combination of severity and priority. So whenever we log the issue, we have to provide severity as well as priority. It is possible for a defect to have high severity and low priority, or it can also have high priority and high severity. It can also have low priority and low severity. It can have high priority and low severity. The issue can be also of high severity and low priority. So these are the four combinations which can be there for different type of issues. An interview, they will ask which type of issues are high severity and high priority, which type of issues are high severity but low priority, which type of issues are high priority but low severity, which type of issues are low priority and low severity. So you should be able to give examples for all these four combinations. So now let's see what are some examples of different combinations. high severity and high priority. So first one is high severity and high priority. You have some banking application. You are going to test a banking application. And that banking application crashes whenever user tries to transfer the money. So what is the priority of that issue? Priority will be high because application is getting crashed whenever user is trying to transfer the money. As a banking application, it is a high priority issue. It needs to fixed immediately as it is directly impacting the users and business operation. A banking application which is not able to send the money, it's a high priority issue as well as high severity issue as well, because the entire core functionality of the application money transfer is affected. So such issue is high priority and high severity. Its severity is also high, its priority is also high. Another example will be payment gateway is not working on the production server, preventing the users from completing the purchase. If you have e-commerce application on which payment gateway is not working on the production server, so users are not able to buy the products, they are not able to complete the purchase. Again, its priority is high, its severity is also high, because this will affect the revenue and it should be fixed immediately. Its severity is high because it is directly impacting the revenue of the business and it should be fixed immediately. That's why it is a high priority and high severity issue. Another example is login. If you have an application in which login is taking you to blank page, its severity is high because users are not able to log in. It is redirecting to blank page, and its priority is also high because it need to fix immediately. Then only you would be able to do another type of testing. So these are three examples of high priority as well as high severity. So these are the examples of high priority and high severity. Now let's see some examples of high severity but low priority. High severity but low priority. What are such issues? So whenever critical functionality is broken but it doesn't need to be fixed immediately. So there is a critical impact on the business workflow, but its urgency is not there. Fixing need not to be a immediate fix. It should not be a fixed immediately. So what are the some issues? So let's say you have one application. Let's say you have some application in which there is a reporting tool. That reporting tool crashes whenever generating a quarterly reports. So whenever user is going to generate a quarterly report, that application is crashing. But the next report is not due for several weeks. So you have already taken the report and you have to take the report after some weeks. It is not very urgent. So its impact is high because severity is high. The reporting feature itself is not usable. That's why its severity is high. But priority is low because the defect can be fixed later as well. It is not urgent. For user, he has already taken the report previously and the next report he will generate after some weeks. So that's why it is not very urgent. So its severity is high because reporting feature is unusable, but priority is low because there is some time before the reports are needed. So fix immediately is not needed. Severity is high, priority is low. Another example is FAQ section is taking to a blank page. So there is one website on which there is a FAQ section. That FAQ section, when you click on it, it is going to a blank page. So business impact is high because FAQ section is not working. But its priority is low because it is not immediate fix because you don't have to fix it immediately. Users visiting the FAQ sections are very low. Users, it is not impacting any other functionality. It is just impacting on FAQ section. That's why its priority is low. One more example is, let's take a system which crashes during a rarely used admin operation that's only performed monthly. So if there is some admin operation which is going to be performed once in a month, severity is high, but priority will be low because it can be fixed later as well. So this is the examples of high severity and low priority. Now let's see some examples of low severity and high priority. So what are some examples of low severity but high priority? Non-critical functionality. So if there is some functionality which is not critical but it is affected and that issue is very urgent for business or visibility reasons. For example, if you have website, the company's tagline, so you have some company's tagline on the website which is incorrect just before a major product launch. Now the company's tagline is affected. So critically, severity wise, it is low because issue is not affecting any functionality. It's just a tagline which is not correct. It is not impacting on other functionality of that application. All the other things are working perfectly fine. But priority wise, it is high. Why it is high? Because it needs to be fixed immediately to avoid harming the company's branding during a high visibility event. There is an event which is scheduled on which the website will be shown in a demo. So if the tagline is incorrect, it will create a negative impact. That's why its priority is high. It has to be fixed immediately. So this is having severity low but priority high. Another example, let's take another example. A social media share button is missing on a high traffic blog post just before a marketing campaign launch. So in normal days, we have, let's say, a social media campaign which is scheduled tomorrow. And today you see that social media share button is missing. So priority wise it is high because tomorrow is campaign you have to launch. For that you need that share button. So priority wise it need to be fixed immediately. So it must be fixed before the campaign goes live to ensure that users can share the content. But severity wise it is low because it does not affect the core site function. So severity wise it is low because it is not affecting the core site functions. All the core site functions are working perfectly fine. But since there is a immediate campaign and for that campaign launch, multiple users will be using that button. So priority wise it need to be fixed immediately. So these are some examples of low severity and high priority issues. And now low severity and low priority issues. So minor cosmetic or usability issue that doesn't need a immediate fix or comes under low severity and low priority issues. Some examples are minor misalignment in the UI. So let's say there is a minor alignment issue in the setting page of internal application. So inside the setting, there is a slight UI misalignment that comes under low severity because it is a purely cosmetic. Priority will be also low because it does not need to be fixed immediately. It can be fixed in later releases as well. Another example is, let's say there is a tooltip that contains some outdated information but doesn't affect the user actions. So it is again a low priority issue because it does not need to be fixed immediately and it can be deferred to a later release as well. And it's a non-functional issue. So severity is also low. So these are some examples of low severity and low priority issues. So this is about, and this is again very important concept. Most of the interviews people will ask the examples for low severity, low severity in high priority issues, high severity and low priority issues, high severity and high priority issues. So you should be able to explain these examples for different combinations of severity and priority. Just understand that severity is how critical it is impacting on the business flow, and priority means how immediately it need to be fixed. So these are two parameters, severity and priority of the issues. Thanks for watching this video.